what do you think are some of the maybe not so subtle challenges, some of the things that folks are dealing with as we connect more of these systems in terms of identity?
It's a big question. I think the first thing is maybe I'm going to coin a term and I'll say identity culture, and understanding what is your identity culture. Is it just a system of attributes by which you take a system, a human, a process, and assign attributes to it and consider that an identity, a digital identity? Is it a collection of these attributes that are then used to provision or integrate or enrich certain other systems and other applications, creating a codependency? Is that really your identity culture, is just a collection of stuff? Or is your identity culture such that it's much more than attribute collection, but it's also enrichment and composing identities to influence business processes? So you might have an onboarding mechanism either for devices or for humans, for the warm carbon units that are there every day. For those people, what attributes are necessary to provision their entitlement or access to application? What attributes are necessary to influence maybe their inheritance-based access? What attributes are necessary to identify where they can go, what applications are provisioned to them, what their title is, their cost center, their group membership, whatever it is. It's a lot about access control, of course, but I think it's that mentality, defining and building an identity culture that serves one of, and maybe there's more, but one of those two kind of primary destinations. Is it really just a means to an end of making sure your applications work? Or is it more of a data lake that you can dip into and say, I'd like to see all the digital identities that maintain these characteristics so that I can normalize a process, I can identify anomalies, I can, again, with access control, whatever it is. That definition of your identity culture, I think, is very primary to cybersecurity, because identity is so intrinsic nowadays to cybersecurity. It's such an inane process of what we do. No longer is it just by using identity to identify bad actors. It's using identity to identify anomalous activity or bad processes or leaks or the potential of exposure. So I think, and again, I've tried to define two ways, but I think there's probably more, and it's defining your identity culture is that first step.
Is this radically different than what people are doing today? And if so, how do you know you're ready to do all that?
And I think I don't know if it's radically different. I think it's just the fact that over the years, identity has become our new perimeter of cybersecurity, something I say frequently. And that new perimeter has forced us to understand how that perimeter is built, how it's safeguarded, who are the sentries that walk across the wall, and how do we support them, and how are they critical to this new perimeter. It was the same 20 years ago when the perimeter was the network, and we had to understand firewalls and IDS and IPS and segmentation and application-based ACLs and next-gen firewalls and all this kind of stuff. We had to understand this new perimeter, and that's how it is today. I don't think it's different or we didn't know it was there. It's just that's where the threats have moved. They've moved to business email compromise. They've moved to identity compromise. They've moved to using benign applications that are sitting on our network, cloud storage applications today, for nefarious purposes. And the investment in digital identity allows us to be more exacting in how we police those applications, those processes. So it's definitely a change in focus, but I think it's just a reinvestment of activity in a different front.
And is it more of a process change, technology change?
Oof. Yeah. I think I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, yeah, okay, yes to all, but no to any. It's certainly a process change, because you're focusing based on that identity culture that you create, how much investment you have, how much you need, So yeah, there's some process change. There's a technology change because I think that you need some type of identity management platform, and regardless of industry or vertical. In healthcare, of course, it's intrinsically important because of patients that we deal with and physicians and clinicians that provide care. So identity is critically important to us, but even if you're just making widgets or shipping, woobles from one side of the country to the other, I still think there is a technology piece there. There is an identity management system that needs to be apparent, present, and usable. I think it's also a people change too. There's also a significant difference, and you'll find this among different verticals. What I've found is financial services is more focused on identity from the perspective of fraud detection. So, at least in my experience, financial services has been focused on using identity to enhance fraud detection and prevention, or identify bad actors as part of financial fraud. Whereas in healthcare, identity is more of an enrichment practice. We're using identity, as I said before, to influence those downstream business decisions. People have to make that shift. They have to understand the difference between those approaches and what matters to their particular applications, their particular systems, and they have to understand the power of identity. So I think it's really all three.